terrorism in Germany. I'd like to start with a short look at the situation in 2021 as I see it. The security situation in the country has improved after the terrible year of 2016, when Germany experienced 5 terrorist attacks altogether. One of them in Berlin in December 2016, a major one. And although the situation seems to have been relatively quiet ever since 2017, there has been a series of foiled attacks ever since, and some of them quite serious. I would like to mention one example, that was the so-called Ricin plot in Cologne in 2017, when a couple has planned to use ricin in an unknown location to kill a number of Germans. Plus, Sofia has already mentioned it, an alleged plot by a group of Tajiks who are reported by the German authorities to have been in contact with IS Central in Syria until early 2019, and with IS Khorasan at the same time. Plus, we have seen quite a few smaller incidents, and at least one of these plots has been directed by IS. You might have heard about it. There has been an arrest in the West German town of Hagen quite recently. A 16-year-old boy is alleged to have planned an attack on a Jewish installation in the city, and he was in contact with an IS coach. And that is my second point. If you analyze the different plots in Germany in recent years, most serious plots in Germany have been directed by IS, meaning that there was an attacker, either a lone actor or a small group of people who have been in contact with IS handlers, who have coached them, who have advised them, sometimes over longer periods of time. The attack in Berlin in December 2016 by Anis Amri was one of these directed attacks. The Ricin plot in Cologne was one of these attacks. And as it seems, the plot, if it has been a plot by the Tajiks in North Rhine-Westphalia in early 2019, has also been a directed plot. Plus, there is ample evidence that some kind of coaching by an IS cell might have played a role in the Vienna attack, here in Vienna, on November 2, 2020. And this, I think, is probably the most dangerous modus operandi that Western governments have to prepare for. Because lone actor attacks have happened, but they have not had too much effect. Sometimes these guys kill people, but in most cases, the effect is is not so serious. And I think what you need for such a directed attack, or for a major wave of directed attacks, is first mass radicalization of young supporters. And we have seen that in recent years, that the organization Islamic State has attracted much more young people in the Western world and in the Muslim world as well than any other jihadist organization before it. I personally believe that the root cause for this success is ideology and not discrimination or some other factor in the Western world. But that's perhaps up to discussion. And there is another thing that you need in order to successfully launch these directed attacks. That is a strong, successful organization in the Muslim world. And that is perhaps the reason why we have not seen any directed attacks by al-Qaida or by organizations close to al-Qaida, but rather directed attacks seem to be a monopoly of the Islamic State. The question is now, do we see a trend in recent years and in months? I think that everything that I've been watching here in Germany and in other countries seem to hint at quite a stable threat that is not changing for the time being. What is important about the events in Afghanistan, though, is the potential for new organizations or the potential for organizations that already exist to grow, simply because the supporters for terrorist attacks are there. They are there all over the Western world, and they are there in the Arab world as well. But a big organization is needed that is able to prompt young people to kill and to die for it. IS, of course, is still out there. I have heard of external operations structures in Western Syria that might have played a role in the Vienna attack. I have heard of external operations structures in Turkey and in the Balkans as well. So the biggest danger that the two dangers that I see after the withdrawal from Afghanistan are the following. The danger one is the emergence of a new IS structure, IS Khorasan, that manages to control territory, possibly attract foreign fighters, but then prompt followers worldwide to let the organization direct attacks. The second danger that I see is our alliances between IS, al-Qaida, and other structures. I have heard that Ambassador Edmund has mentioned the Haqqani network, but there are also other Afghani or Pakistani global jihadist outfits who might be ready to join new organizations. And I think Hans has already mentioned that while we were speaking. There is the possibility in Afghanistan, especially if the Taliban do what the Western world wants them to do, namely promote a moderate course, that will pave the way for the global jihadists of IS, al-Qaida, Haqqani, and other Taliban to create something new alliance of jihadist organizations. That is why Afghanistan is important. I still think, though, and that's possibility number two, that Syria remains important. And especially because I see a certain potential for new alliances between IS and al-Qaida structures. After the territorial caliphate was defeated in early 2019, and sometimes even before, all kinds of contacts have been made between IS leaders, IS members, and their jihadist colleagues in Idlib. Just think of the presence of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in Idlib on the Horas ad-Din territory in 2019. For Germans, I think Afghanistan is attractive, but hard to reach. We had a small cell several years ago from the Frankfurt area, 3 young people who tried to reach Afghanistan, and at least one of them died on the way. It seems to have become extremely hard to cross Turkish and Iranian territory direction Pakistan or Afghanistan. That is why I think that directed attacks might become a more common phenomenon if the jihadists over there in Afghanistan grow stronger. It is more attractive for young jihadists to act on behalf of jihadist organizations in Afghanistan than to go there. And for the time being, I still believe that Syria remains the more concrete danger, though, and not so much because of the organizations who are active there, and not so much because I think that there is a possibility for jihadist cooperation between IS and al-Qaeda groups, but simply because of the fact that so many Germans are still out there. I'm not talking about the 30 Germans who are in Kurdish jails, but we do count at least 40 Germans right now in the ranks of either Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Syrian Liberation Committee, or affiliated organizations like Horas ad-Din, or even smaller outfits. Although These groups, of course, have not perpetrated any attacks abroad, but simply because there are so many Germans, there is a certain possibility that they might become active in the near future. Thank you very much.